Hey, what's going on? This is the Body Punch Podcast, and my name is Naz. Let's talk about UFC Fight Night, Overeem versus Volkov. I really enjoyed this card, and I think a lot of people didn't get the chance to watch it live. It was a very low-key event, but I think if you did watch it live, you got a real treat. We saw all these fun fights on the card. We saw Michael Johnson versus Clay Guida. We saw the amazing performance of Cory Sandhagen knocking out Frankie Edgar. And then we saw Alexander Volkov putting on an amazing display against Alistair Overeem. And overall, I thought it was a fun card, especially when you take a week off like the UFC did and then coming back. It just seems like there's up and down situations that happen in MMA. You know, one time you have the highs of a Conor McGregor card where you see all of the media, you see all the podcasts go crazy, posting almost every day. You see Conor McGregor out there talking to the media. And then we get these dips where the UFC takes a week off. We watch other organizations. But the UFC has really made it ingrained in our heads that almost every Saturday night, you got to be ready for a UFC card. And I thought this one was sneaky good. There's a lot of fun fights on there. But I want to focus on the main event and the co-main event. Let's start with the co-main event. This fight, it means a lot for both fighters. It means a lot for all fighters that go in. But for Frankie Edgar to go in there at 135 against a man that defies all odds and fights in this weight class, somehow making 135. If you showed people that didn't know anything about MMA and didn't know who Frankie Edgar was and didn't know who Cory Sandhagen was, and you asked them the question, who was the one that fought at 155? I bet you 9 times out of 10, maybe 10 times out of 10, everybody would say Sandhagen. He's so much bigger than everybody in that bantamweight division. It's just difficult to even imagine the weight cut that he has to do and the way that he has to prepare his body year in and year out. Because for a person to make this kind of a weight cut and to make it into this kind of weight class, you have to prepare your body throughout the whole year. This is not something that you can just do like normally. You have to be prepared for it. And the way that Cory Sandhagen took out Frankie Edgar in the first round at 28 seconds with a flying knee KO, it was incredible. The athleticism that he showed was amazing. I mean, he only had to put his knee up a little bit because of how tall he was compared to Frankie Edgar. But to read a person like that in the octagon, for us mere mortals, I don't know who's listening to this podcast, but me, I look at a person like Cory Sandhagen and think to myself how spectacular these fighters are. For them to make calculated decisions on a second by second basis. Every second they're in there, they're reading their opponent. And the way Cory described it after the fight in his post-fight press conference was like, yeah, I just kind of read the moment and saw that Frankie Edgar was a little bit slower to react to certain things. And he thought he would just throw that flying knee out there because Frankie is a wrestler. This is the same thing that happened to Ben Askren. It happened a lot quicker to Ben Askren. But Frankie, his flinch reaction when he doesn't think, when he just does something, is to wrestle. It's ingrained in your head as a wrestler. And this shows you how tactical and smart Cory Sandhagen is in the moment. Before we saw this fight, we did a pre-fight analyzation. And I said that Frankie Edgar, this would be amazing for him. This would be spectacular for him to go down to this weight class and beat someone like Cory Sandhagen would have been spectacular. I mean, who doesn't like Frankie Edgar? If you don't like Frankie Edgar, then I don't know what's wrong with you. The guy is an amazing guy. He seems like an amazing guy. But Cory Sandhagen is at the top, and he's number 2 for a reason. I think they're going to bump him up after this, but he put on a display and he showed why he's at the top. But the thing is that Aljo is going to be fighting for the belt against Petr Yan. And after that fight, do I think that Cory Sandhagen is the person to fight for that belt next? I think so. And not just because of the skill, because I see a story either way. I think if Petr Yan wins against Aljo, then Cory Sandhagen could still fight for that belt against Petr Yan. And really, if he beats Petr Yan, then he'll show everybody that Aljamain Sterling fight, he's better now than before. But could you imagine if Aljamain Sterling won that belt and then Cory Sandhagen went up against him? What a fight that would be. And then you would have to do a third fight after that. You just have to. And this bantamweight division, I mean, it's so stacked. We see all of these amazing fights. And we see all of the amazing fighters in there. But with Cody Garbrandt in the division, with TJ Dillashaw coming back, with Dominic Cruz, even though he's a veteran of that division, coming back. And then all of these fighters that I see. I mean, Marlon Moraes, people forget about him as well. He could come back and put on a real run. But then it shows you how great Cory Sandhagen is. And this is something special that we're seeing here. We're seeing someone that came back from adversity and faced his demons almost. Because of that loss against Aljo, That rear naked choke that was so quick in the first round. It seems like it's lit a fire underneath Cory Sandhagen. He knows what it's like to lose. Looking at his record, this guy's only lost twice. He didn't know what losing felt like at that level. I mean, I'm sure he knows what it's like when he's practicing. I'm sure he's seen it before. I'm sure he's been in other high-level competitions. I mean, to get to this level, you can't not lose. But to lose at that level at UFC 250 against Aljamain Sterling, man, that must have been a nightmare for him. And for him to come back like the way he is against Marlon Moraes with a spinning wheel kick and against Frankie Edgar with a flying knee, you can't deny this guy a title shot. I mean, even if we look back at the interviews that just came out, we see him talking about, and this is Cory Sandhagen, we see him talking about the fact is that he wants to go in there and take out people. He doesn't want to analyze the fight as much. He's trying to do it at a faster pace. He's trying to get people out there. And this is what we saw with other fighters as well, where they're done with staring at their opponent, trying to figure them out. They just want to get him out. And the best way they know how is by knockout, like we're seeing here. Cory Sandhagen is no one to mess with. And I believe he does deserve the title shot. And what a story it would be if it was against Aljamain Sterling. But Petr Yan, I made videos about him in the past, just analyzing his fights. Man, that guy's a monster. It's going to be tough to get that guy to give up that UFC belt. So let's talk about Frankie Edgar now. Frankie Edgar, I mean, veteran of the sport, Hall of Famer already. A lot of people are asking the question, like, why is he still fighting? He's the type of guy, and this is what I'm seeing, it seems like he's the type of guy that just wants to show everybody how great he is. Doesn't matter how much money he has. Doesn't matter how much respect he has. He just wants to show people that he's a champion. And it seemed like this Cory Sandhagen fight was a must-win for him if he wanted to fight for that bantamweight belt. Do I think that Frankie Edgar should retire? I don't think so. I don't think that Frankie Edgar should retire. I think that he should obviously figure out if this is still something he wants to do. That was a brutal, brutal head kick. And even in his fight against Brian Ortega, that I remember, that was a tough fight. I mean, he fought Max Holloway, and that was a tough fight. You know, this guy's been in wars. This guy's been in so many wars. But I still don't think that he should retire. He's still got the skills. Even at his age, he has the game that translates well over time. He is 39 years old, though. But if he refined his game a little bit more, because I think he does have the game and he does have the skills to really nullify everybody using his wrestling. taking it to the ground as fast as he can. We all saw how Khabib Nurmagomedov and other wrestlers like Kamaru Usman use their wrestling. But that's tough to say. I mean, these are skills that you develop over years, and for someone to just give up on what they thought was best is a tough habit to break. So if Frankie Edgar really thinks that he can win another one, then he should do it. But I don't think he has the time left to slow down if he wants that belt. He's got to fight quickly. He just took the brutal knockout, I know. But right when he's available and ready to fight, and if he wants to show everybody that he's still a champion, he's got to get out there and fight. And he's got to make a statement. We've seen people on short winning streaks, be it the name recognition, be it the way that they won those fights, get a title opportunity. And that's what could happen with Frankie Edgar. But it's tough to see him get knocked out like that. Man, to see him flatline the way that he did, it was just tough to watch. So let's talk about the main event. TKO stoppage. Alexander Volkov defeats Alistair Overeem. Again, another tough one to watch because Alistair Overeem, in so many people's eyes, was the Demolition Man, just like his nickname. He was the man. And to see what we saw, again, was tough to watch. And the way that Volkov took out Overeem, it was great to see because, like I said in the preview show, he's got to use his length. And if Alistair Overeem was planning to play the game of staying far away from Volkov and using this new style that he's developed, that would not work against a guy this tall. And he did exactly what he needed to do. He played at range. He used his length. And he took out Alistair Overeem. The other tough part about this is that in the first round, Alistair broke his nose. And you could see him kind of pawing at it. You could see it bother him. How could it not? You have a broken nose in the middle of the octagon with a trained killer coming after that. So are we going to blame the whole thing on the nose? Are we going to blame it on the age? What do we blame it on? That's just what we do as fight fans. We got to figure out a reason why someone lost. And in this fight, I think there was a bunch of different things. Obviously, Volkov is an amazing, experienced fighter. It's funny because I go through the list of fights that Volkov has had compared to the list of the last guy that we were talking about, Cory Sandhagen, with that flying knee knockout. Cory Sandhagen's had 16 fights, and then Volkov's had 41. So the amount of experience that this guy has, it just plays into it as well. And the other tough part was that at the end of the fight, Alistair was showing his back to Volkov. It looked like he was almost running away. which obviously I know he wasn't. But to be in that situation and now to hear all the criticism that Alistair Overeem should retire, it must be tough for him. Like any loss is. But there was so much weighing on this loss and this fight. You know, for Alistair Overeem, if he would have won this, because, like I said before, the name recognition and the fights that he's had before, it would have been a 3-fight winning streak that he would have been on. He might as well at least had claim to the next in line for the UFC title, or the next person to fight John Jones and the first person to fight him at heavyweight. That could have been the fight. That was the opportunity that he had. And now that's kind of gone. Not kind of, it's gone. And what does this mean for Volkov now? What is this? Where does this put him in the heavyweight division? I think that this honestly puts him in the conversation. I don't think he should get a title shot now. I don't think he's the right person for John Jones either. But this does put him up there. This makes him one of the elite at heavyweight. We're seeing this now. And it really all depended on how these two would fight. If Alistair came in there really aggressive, I think, in my opinion, if he came in there really aggressive and fought like the way he did early in his career, this would have been a different fight. But Volkov, you can't mess with him in his domain. His domain is playing at range because he's got the reach. We've seen in the past that he does like to fight real close and not use his natural abilities and gifts. But now we're seeing a different Volkov. We're seeing a guy that knows how to use his skills. So, this was a fun fight card. Overall, I enjoyed watching it. I mean, there was a lot of good fights on the card. It's a great way to kick back and have the UFC. And like I said at the beginning, we're so used to seeing fights every weekend. And to not have that for a bit, it's really nice to have. So fun night of fights. So thank you for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it. If you can like, subscribe, hit the bell notification on YouTube, I'd really appreciate it. If you guys could listen to the podcast on the different podcast networks and follow it and give 5 stars and all that good stuff, that'd be amazing. Again, thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to this podcast. This has been the Body Punch Podcast. My name is Naz. Bye.